Hello and welcome to Does It Matter? It's Kareem again. There's been a lot going on lately. George Floyd, COVID, the whole lot. It's been quite the roundabout. Swings and roundabouts, well and truly. Something I've noticed recently is that it's super easy to get on a vein. That's true. Like George Floyd was murdered, or get on a vein that COVID kills people and is a serious threat, but also that COVID, the treatment and the suppression of COVID is destroying economies. That black people and white people are abused by police. The nuance, that all manners of people suffer from poor policing. There's a lot of whataboutery. So, someone says, well, in my experience as a black person, and there are studies galore to show that people of color in the United States, in particular black people, suffer substantially more road stops and more what could be construed as, it obviously always isn't always that, but could be construed as harassment, and are being pulled over multiple times in the same area by the same group of police, particularly when there's often no charge, no fines levied. They're just being inconvenienced for the sake of it, which is what it looks like. Even if it isn't that, we kind of need an awareness of the fact that people have a right to peace and security and to be able to go about their business undisturbed. That's written into multiple constitutions around the world in most social and liberal democracies. You have a right to not be harassed by the police or anyone else unless they actually have pressing reason to do so. But we also have to be, if we're going to be nuanced and honest about these subjects, and I'm not simply talking about George Floyd or COVID or anything like that. There is always a version of the truth that contains much of it. There's another version of the truth that contains some of that truth as well. Neither one is objective reality. Our views, our opinions, our beliefs are their reiterations of reality. They're models that we have in our head and we share with other people of reality. They're not reality itself. So that means that everything that we believe is imperfect. Everything that we think and feel is an imperfect rendition of what has just happened or what we've read or what we've experienced. People can be asked about eyewitness accounts of events that occurred seconds before, and they can't get even the basic facts correct. Couples argue over arguments that have occurred, a day ago, a year ago, a decade ago. And in studies where they've looked at these things, they're actually able to find that in many cases, human memory is good for about 7 years tops. After 7 years, it's horribly unreliable without memory cues, verification through videos and documentation. It's horribly unreliable. People have terrible memories over long periods of time, unless they're repeating the facts over and over again at a fairly frequent and regular pace. And even then, that assumes that their first memory is accurate. If their first memory is inaccurate or incomplete, then they are repeating what they think is a complete truth, but isn't. It's a partial truth at best. This is what we're stuck with, this imperfect human memory. And to pair it, just to add the fuckery to a higher level entirely, we pair it with a need to believe in simple truths, a need to believe in clear, concise, symmetrical reality. Okay? Where the fuck do you see that? Really? Honestly, if that's what you see, you need to click off now and go and live in your little illusion land, okay? Fuck off. Because that's not reality. That's your illusion, okay? Free yourself from it or go away. Don't listen to me any further. I'm just going to upset you, okay? None of us are anything but deluded. None of us, me included. We're all deluded because we don't have all the data. We don't have all the facts. But we can move closer to a less diluted state by relying on data, relying on convergent opinions based on data, not on feelings, not on, interesting ideas, but on data, facts. And when we don't have that, we need to be able to live with uncertainty. This is the third feature. We like to have symmetrical, clean, concise things to believe in. We like to believe that we remember reality as it is and we perceive it as it is. Okay? And we also like to craft reality to suit our existing biases and prejudices, which we don't admit to more often than not. So I'm cultivating here a narrative that isn't particularly complementary to us as a species. Okay, these are the things we have to deal with. These biases, these poor memory. It didn't evolve for the kind of complexity we throw it into now. We're working with, I believe, at the limitations of some of our intellectual capacities. We're working at limitations of our memory. And we're working definitely beyond the limitations now of our education system, which thinks that you can teach critical thinking incidentally, like along the way as you go to your various different courses through school and TAFE and university. You will incidentally learn how to critically think. You will incidentally learn how to contemplate and self-reflect. That's bullshit. You're not. Study after study from Mayo Clinic, from Berkeley University Psychology, from sociology and psychology departments all over the world have showed over and over again, you don't do that. You learn how to hyper-specifically apply logic and reason in that area. It does not necessarily migrate and usually doesn't migrate into other areas of your life. It certainly doesn't migrate to your personal management. It doesn't. So you have to learn it specifically, like everything else. Critical thinking, self-reflection, self-analysis, mutual analysis, social analysis. These are all learnt specifically. You have to apply them specifically. And that requires nuance. It requires an embracing of complexity, an embracing of a world that is not symmetrical and is not tidy. It's fucking messy. It's complicated. And you're often not going to be smart enough by yourself to work it out. You're not. You're going to need help. You're going to need therapy. You're going to need education. You're going to need to consult a lot of people. You're going to be bouncing off a lot of people. And you're going to be awfully confused an awful lot of the time. And that's a healthy state. Here's the fact. Being a little scared is good. Being too scared, bad. Okay? Makes you do crazy things. Being confused is good, provided you have options to deal with that confusion. Intellectually rigorous options. Okay? Being certain about everything and wanting to be certain about everything is natural. We all want that. But being certain about everything and enforcing that certainty through narrow ideological concepts is the fastest way back into the depths of human delusion, which we're all prone to. Life is messy. These situations are messy. I'll give you an example. George Floyd was not necessarily a sterling citizen, all right? He was a bouncer, he'd done some crime, he'd done a few things. I'm not going to go into it. It's not important. But he was murdered still. So here's the thing. He probably, from what we understand, he hadn't done anything significant anyway. Who knows if that arrest was even sound? I suspect we'll find out one day that it probably wasn't even a sound arrest and it was something that could have been dealt with other ways, okay? But he was arrested, dragged out of his home, and then slaughtered when he dared to show any kind of resistance at all, instead of being treated professionally by 4 police officers. Okay? So that's the facts. The facts are also, he wasn't a perfect human being. Who the fuck is? Okay? None of us are. Okay? It isn't relevant to that point. It might have been relevant if he was standing in divorce court, or he was standing in a tribunal to try and get his license back, for business license back or something like that. Yes, his good character would be of relevance then, and that's where nuance rests. But in this particular instance, it isn't. And this is the problem. Without critical thinking, without a basis in some sound philosophy and science, scientific thinking at least, and critical thinking, people are finding themselves unable to determine when you can make a judgment and bring data in that reflects on that person's character, and when that's relevant and when it's not relevant. And that's a hole in our education system. That's a hole in our culture. And it's leading to this Twitter storms of crap on both sides of the ideological divide. It leads to this toxicity. It leads to improper speech towards one another, rudeness. Look, a certain amount of robustness in the nature of the conversation needs to be there. If you can't take a little bit of it, you need to have a sip of concrete and harden the fuck up. Having said that, we need to maintain some level of civility, okay? And if someone's civil to me, I'll be civil to them without fail. That's just a rule that everyone should adhere to. If they're not rude to you, don't be rude to them. Don't be a specious, disingenuous, sarcastic cunt either, okay? That doesn't help anyone, all right? You're just making yourself feel better by concealing your bad intentions behind language. Don't do that either, all right? Everyone knows what it is. Even people who don't entirely understand what you're saying, they can feel it. They can sense it, okay? Don't. Be clear. Be unambiguous. Be polite. And also recognize the fact that you can hold multiple points of view that don't always sit with each other nicely, okay? I don't care if George Floyd was an absolute scumbag. I don't care, okay? In this particular instance, it isn't relevant. He was murdered. That's the relevant point. It could be relevant in another circumstance. It could be relevant if the context was a little different. It could have been different with a single cop on a road stop. George Floyd gets out, reacts poorly. That will be a very different context under which to consider the value and the merit of the situation and the appropriate level of culpability that will be shared if someone lost their life in that situation. Who's culpable? George, the cop, whatever. But that's not the circumstance. We need to be able to pass these circumstances contextually. And it's not satisfying. Life isn't satisfying when you do that sometimes, because you end up with messy circumstances, with shared blame. Okay? Divorce court's a classic example. Everyone's trying to preach for their innocence. Small claims court, same thing. Everyone's trying to preach the innocent, put the little white dress on, the pigtails, the suit, shave, look beautiful, look innocent, look decent. It's all bullshit. The truth rests in between most of the time, and culpability is almost invariably shared to some degree. Sometimes you're just a victim, but most of the time you're in there to some degree. You have some responsibility for your own life as well. We all do, okay? I've been in situations, abusive jobs, situations and relationships where I stayed, and probably longer than I should have, and that's my culpability. It's not even theirs, though we shared it. The people that abuse you share that culpability, but so do you. Because you have a choice. You have choices. You have to make those choices. If you don't make a choice, that's still making a choice. There's the nuance. It sucks. It's painful. It's deeply uncomfortable. People will call it victim bashing, okay? Because they're morons. Because they want to, they're listening to that bias that says everything has to fit tidily and symmetrically, and if it's not ideologically sound, it can't be true. Wipe your tears away. Wipe your tears away and accept your delusion in that belief. Life is complex and messy. We are complex and messy. And if you want to have a hope of ever having peace and being happy, if you want harmony to be in your life, you ain't going to get there by denying the complexities and insisting on being certain about everything. Because I can tell you now, I'm as confused as anyone else about a lot of things. I don't understand a lot of things, and I do my best to try to do so in the most rigorous way I can. I also accept the fact there's plenty of things I'll never understand. There's plenty of things I'll never come to a satisfying conclusion over. And being able to live with that is called being a grown-up. It's called being a mature adult. It's called being wise. Wisdom has been lost from the dialogue of humanity for quite a long time. We just don't seem to respect wisdom. Wisdom requires a deep, reflective understanding of oneself and the world, and understanding of our limitations. Understanding you might not be smart enough to work some things out. You might not have the knowledge or the information you need to work it out, even if you are smart enough. You might not have what's needed to accurately grasp a situation you're in. You're actually in it, swimming in it, drowning in it. Doesn't mean that you understand it at all. You're just experiencing it. We experience things all the time. It doesn't mean we understand them. Now, I know I'm getting a bit passionate about that, but I've faced some serious consequences in my life because I thought that experiencing something meant that you understood it. And that's really not the case. Okay? Detachment, pulling back, relaxing, moving into a non-judgmental state where you can analyze something and reflect on something as free of your human biases as possible. That's the best state human beings can fall into. Meditation, contemplation, reflection, critical thought. These are the things that save us and raise us from savagery. And the conversations we're having lately, and have been for quite some time, lack nuance. They are self-indulgent, lazy, biased, and they're on both sides of the fence, on every side of the fence, and we're all prone to them. We're all prone to being self-righteous. God damn, I know I am. We're prone to being certain about things. I'm worse than most about that if I give into it. I'm terrible. Okay? Big ego. And that means I get certain about things. I get passionate about things. And if I'm wrong, it's difficult to admit that I'm wrong. But I'm wrong often enough that it's become easier. Okay? I'm wrong all the time. I make mistakes all the time. So do you. So do most people. Okay? If you're not a genius living in a lab, in a narrow, hyper-specific life, you're probably making a fair few mistakes in your life. You're having incorrect thoughts. You're getting the data wrong. You're drawing incorrect conclusions or partial conclusions. We're all doing that. And this is about curating that, narrowing it down, shaving away the crap, sorting the chaff out from the wheat and getting the goodness. And the goodness isn't easy. It takes hard work. It takes sacrifice and hard work and rigor. And it takes us having to be uncertain and confused for sometimes years at a time in particular areas and really struggling with those things. If you want to be comfortable, you have to be comfortable in your own skin. You have to be comfortable internally. You have to curate the landscape of your own mind and thoughts to be at peace, because the world is going to confuse you. The world is going to fuck with you. People are going to fuck with you, whether they mean to or not. They're going to do these things, and you're going to have to be inviolate to that. You're going to have to learn the skills of being inviolate to that. I'm trying. I'm doing my best. Again, as I've said before, I'm nobody's example. Okay, I'm a deeply flawed individual. But because of those humongous flaws that I have, I think it helps. I know that I can fuck up royally. And as a result, I work harder than most to address all those biases that I've talked about that we have, and I have in spades. So, again, as I've said before, please be kind to one another. Please try to understand that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be anything other than a rigorous human being. You need to be strong. You need to be brave. Being brave is not a choice. You're either brave or you're a failure. You're either brave or you're hurting someone, including yourself. You're either brave or you're falling short of what you could be. Okay? You have to be brave. Do the things that make you brave. Be brave. Fake it if you have to. Be brave. And then from there, be kind. If you're courageous and you're kind, you will find your way. I absolutely fucking promise you, you'll find your way. In the middle of the storm with all the shit going down, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. You'll be fine. You'll be able to find that quiet space inside you, and you'll be able to stay there safe and sound while everything is falling apart. Been there, done that, and I'll do it again, because life keeps going on. Build that safe space inside yourself. There's no safe space out there. That's bullshit. Build it inside you. Wrap it in security, in confidence, in competency. Wrap it in resiliency. You'll always have a place to withdraw to. You'll always have a place to recharge. Peace.